To introduce our first keynote speaker, Major General Paul Lynch. Paul is serving now as the NATO Deputy Assistant Secretary General for Intelligence. Longtime professional in GEOINT, Paul leads efforts to strengthen the intelligence integration, enhance the information sharing, and ensure the security of NATO's strategic and operational environments across the alliance. Paul has an accomplished career in the British Royal Marines and a wealth of experience in both international defense intelligence as well as GEOINT. And Major General Lynch brings a global perspective to these evolving challenges of our time, from near-peer competition to hybrid threats to rapid technological change. Today, he'll join us to share insights into NATO's intelligence priorities, the role of GEOINT in their collective defense, and how multinational cooperation is shaping the future of allied security. So please join me to welcome Paul to the stage.
Hey, good morning, everyone. It's great to be here, and I was going to say in sunny St. Louis, which it is at the moment, but of course we've had some recent extreme weather, so our thoughts are with all those affected by the tragedy of that weather system that came through. But last time I was here visiting in St. Louis, I was visiting NGA as part of a previous role, and I think I got to watch the Cardinals beat the Red Sox, which apparently somebody said was unusual. I don't know if it's unusual now, but good luck to them. I think they're playing tonight. Any baseball fans, please let me know. We all know this great city is ever growing in prominence within the geospatial community, and it is the perfect place to host this amazing symposium this year. And a huge thank you to the organizers and sponsors. I just think they've just done such a brilliant job, and the team backstage are incredible. I couldn't be prouder to speak to you today, this fantastic audience, about NATO and about GEOINT. Jerry Seinfeld observed once that nothing in life is fun for the whole family. Well, I disagree. I think that GEOINT is one of those things that's fun for the whole family. I've used GEOINT on operations over a near 30-year military career, and I've seen firsthand on the battlefield the profound impact and also the huge leap in capability and capacity over that time. When I compare what we were using in operations in Northern Ireland in 2000, or to support landings on the Alfour Peninsula in 2003, or to conduct counterinsurgency operations in Helmand Province in 2010, to what the brilliant team in my previous role in the UK's National Centre for Geospatial Intelligence, working alongside our friends in NGA, were doing to inform decision makers in 2022, and then what's happened over the last 3 years. I think the difference is incredible. It's really stark. The advances over the last few years have been nothing but mind-blowing, and you have led those changes. What you do is incredible, and it matters hugely. It matters not only for your own national security, but for the future security of the Euro-Atlantic area and beyond. Today, more than ever, NATO needs the support of this community. As our current and future security is at stake, intelligence, and GEOINT in particular, remains absolutely central to the alliance. From the high north to NATO's southern neighborhood, along our eastern flank, in space and cyberspace, our collective security faces challenges and threats from a disturbingly broad range of adversaries and competitors. It is clear that the most significant and direct of these threats comes from Russia, and this will persist into the long term. For over 3 years, war has raged in Eastern Europe, and there are obvious concerns about how it will end. And having ramped up his defense industry, Putin's war machine rumbles on, supported by Chinese technology, Iranian drones, and North Korean missiles and troops, all at huge cost in blood and in treasure. Not least in Ukraine, our collective security is being increasingly challenged by those who want to replace the global order with chaos and coercion and promote the rule of force over the rule of law. And we must not let this happen. Coercion depends more on the threat of what is yet to come than on damage already done. And as we face this future together, alliances such as NATO are more relevant than ever. For 76 years, NATO has ensured the freedom and security of allies. A strong transatlantic alliance remains the bedrock of our defense. But we're also deepening our partnerships near and far, and I'd reiterate the words of our Secretary General, Mark Rutte. What happens in Europe matters for the Indo-Pacific and vice versa. From Europe and the EU to the Indo-Pacific and across our southern neighborhood, We are engaged in dialogue, exercises, and sharing ideas. To strengthen security and defense, governments are taking a more strategic approach to future capabilities now. We know exactly what forces, resources, and capability every ally needs to provide, and we also allow in there an element of innovation so it can change. So this will involve more money being invested in defense and our transatlantic defense industrial capacity. We know that we must send clear, long-term demand signals to industry, and with this demand, industry will need to step up, continue to innovate, adopt new technologies, and achieve economies of scale. We must also continue our support for Ukraine. 3 years ago, in the face of Russia's onslaught, Ukraine did not falter, Ukraine did not fall. With resolution and courage, they refused to resign themselves to Russian darkness. They are showing that in the depths of winter, there lies within them an invincible summer. And so far, our collective support has helped brave Ukrainians defend their country from continued assault. But we need to do much more. Russia's continuing war of aggression in Ukraine has had clear global repercussions. But we must not lose sight of China's influence on international security. China continues to play a long and at times secretive game. And by this, I mean there's no transparency with respect to their military buildup, both conventional and nuclear. And in support of wider regional claims, China continues to display increasingly aggressive behavior towards its neighbors. All of this while acting as the decisive enabler for Russia's war effort. But it's not just state-level challenges that we face. Many other dangers persist, from terrorism to nuclear proliferation and hybrid or destabilizing threats. A famous cricketer, and cricket is the better game than baseball, I'll just say that, probably controversial. It's the only game where you can have a game that goes on for 5 days and nobody wins. So W.G. Grace was this famous cricketer, and he said, "There was no such thing as a crisis, just the next ball." Timely and accurate and shareable intelligence helps us work out where that next ball is coming from. For all of us here, GEOINT aims to provide us with a way to fuse huge amounts of data into integrated systems and then work out linkages that were previously hidden, to give unique insights across domains and help deliver a comprehensive intelligence picture at, or ideally before, the moment of decision. This is critical for NATO's decision makers to enable them to make the best decisions, or at the very worst, the least worst decisions. And this is why the work that you do is valued by NATO and valuable to NATO. Over the last year, while the main intelligence priority has been the war in Ukraine, we have continued to deliver strategic intelligence about issues that concern our collective security interests. As part of our response to complex challenges, NATO has undertaken significant exercises to ensure readiness, such as Steadfast Defender 2024. This was the first large-scale NATO exercise series where our new regional plans, the regional defense plans, adopted at the Vilnius summit, were put into action. With around 90,000 personnel, 50 ships, 80 aircrafts, and 1,100 combat vehicles from all 32 allies, this was NATO's largest live exercise in decades. This year, we conducted the Steadfast Dart exercise. This was the first large-scale deployment of NATO's Allied Reaction Force within General Cavoli's area of responsibility as the Supreme Allied Commander Europe. NATO's training is resolutely focused on enhancing our readiness to deter and defend every inch of Allied territory across all domains and at all levels of command. All of this, plus many more determined efforts across the alliance, is underpinned by NATO's intelligence enterprise, which continues to ensure strategic and operational decision makers get what they need to execute their missions and mandates. And while we've made progress in so many areas, we are not complacent. Faced with growing strategic competition, NATO is innovating and adapting to stay ahead of emerging threats. However, we need to step up, innovate, and get even better, even faster. Speed is more important than perfection in this area, and this is not easy. But, as Churchill said, difficulties mastered are opportunities won. And in line with our 2030 vision, we are driving NATO forward together to ensure that we can operate across all domains simultaneously and further leverage cutting-edge technologies in our strategies and in our plans. all while making sure that technological advances are achieved responsibly in full respect of our democratic values and international law. At last year's NATO summit in Washington, D.C., allies agreed to accelerate NATO's transformation to meet current and future threats and maintain our technological edge. This included experimentation, more rapid adoption of emerging technologies, and crucially, digital transformation. We also agreed to build on the success of the Defense Innovation Accelerator for the North Atlantic, or DIANA, and the NATO Innovation Fund, the world's first multi-sovereign venture capital fund, to further invest in our innovation ecosystems. Importantly, we committed to adopting the deep technologies that they generate at the speed of relevance. To reach the tipping point for our transformation, we must keep the faith, enjoy the process, and learn at every opportunity. NATO's intelligence enterprise is building on these commitments to drive modernization and innovation across our collective intelligence community. We are closely monitoring technological advances on the battlefield in Ukraine and are launching new innovation initiatives with our Ukrainian partners. We're improving our intelligence capabilities and investments in space and at sea. As part of our digital transformation, we will ensure that the system architecture that underpins NATO intelligence is modernized further, and our focus will be on baking in security by design. I know we often talk about the willingness to share intelligence, but to do this, we must have the most efficient and secure means to share. All the work in Train aims to transform NATO into an all-domain enabled alliance with data centricity at its heart. This is why the work on a federated NATO intelligence systems architecture, as well as federated intelligence production, remain key priorities. During a speech in Brussels last year, NATO's Secretary General Mark Rutte said, "To prevent war, we must spend more." He also stated that we need to be better prepared for what's coming in our way in 4 to 5 years. He reiterated this message at a recent informal foreign ministerial meeting in Turkey. This was yet another strong political message that NATO is committed to invest more in technologies to maintain its cutting edge. National partnerships, while working closer with industry, will be essential. We are working hard to advance NATO's intelligence gathering capabilities and situational awareness across all 5 domains. Initiatives such as the Allied Persistent Surveillance from Space, or APSS, and you'll hear more of this on Wednesday from Colonel Ladislav Stahl from my team, who's in the audience somewhere, and also the Strategic Space Situational Awareness System, and another member of the team, Pino Nobile, he'll speak later on at the Government Hub about this. These are really great examples of the innovative work that NATO is doing to integrate the space domain into its capabilities development and maintain its information superiority within this domain. NATO must continue to maximize its ability to leverage capabilities from space while also delivering security to space. Space technology is essential to the alliance's deterrence and defense. We all understand the fact that space underpins NATO's ability to do many things: navigate and track forces, robust communications, detect missile launches, assure effective command and control, and the list goes on. And a well-known fact, but for those who haven't heard it, more than half of the active satellites orbiting the Earth today belong to NATO members or companies based in NATO territory. As a result of this, increased situational awareness in the space domain is absolutely essential for NATO allies. Moving from space to sea, NATO is working hard to protect our critical underwater infrastructure. The sea serves as a conduit for energy supplies, particularly natural gas and oil, and supports key underwater cables that transmit data between Europe, North America, and far beyond. These elements are crucial not only for our economies, but also for the security of NATO allies and partners. And this year, NATO's Allied Command Operations commenced with Baltic Sentry, aimed at strengthening our military presence in the Baltic Sea to address potential threats and deter destabilizing activities. We are continuing to invest in the latest technologies to detect and minimize the threats to undersea infrastructure. This includes artificial intelligence, specialized sonar systems, uncrewed underwater vehicles, and advanced sensors that provide real-time intelligence on underwater activity. Many moons ago, Arthur C. Clarke wrote that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Now that magic, the magic that you deliver, is our technological edge. NATO's collaboration with the private sector and academia is crucial in preserving and advancing this technological edge. By fostering partnerships, we can drive innovation in defense technologies and ensure that we are ready for whatever comes next from our adversaries. At the same time, NATO's national partnerships remain key to enhancing stability, positively influencing the global security environment, and upholding international law. They play an important role in supporting NATO's 3 core tasks and our 360-degree security approach. So, our security environment, as we will all understand, has undergone profound changes. And the coming years will require us to adapt faster and more decisively than ever before. Our ability to forecast these changes and understand potential threats remains reliant on timely and accurate intelligence. Like I suspect everybody in this room, are keen advocates for all-source data fusion and its rapid integration into applications which have intuitive user interfaces. This is key to timely and accurate assessments that meets the broad range of our customers' requirements. Having cyber and space domain data flowing into cutting-edge applications remains a path to follow for successful GEOINT activities. Whatever comes next, we must work ever closer as allies and with industry partners to ensure that our defense industrial capacity and our intelligence industrial capacity is well integrated. Emerging and disruptive technologies present a wide range of opportunities, but also challenges. And it is essential that we work closely together to tackle both. Diana is one of those initiatives through which we can work together with industry and academia and explore GEOINT innovation activities. So I'm among friends, and I doubt that anybody's going to quote me on this, so I'll say it anyway. GEOINT is the best int. It's true, it's true. I mean, you cannot not say that here. I would say that it is a beautiful discipline. And the test of beauty is not that it's perfect, but that it always attracts. And GEOINT always attracts. It's instrumental to Allied intelligence and security, and I know that it will be even more important in the years to come. I know the value of GEOINT, and I implore you all to redouble your efforts to develop, foster, and further its cause. Security is not just a collective effort. It's a shared responsibility. We must continue to work closely together, innovate relentlessly, and ensure that NATO remains a formidable alliance. None of us is as good as all of us. The best response to this challenging security environment is to stand firmer than ever, to be closer than ever, to be more united than ever. I end with a thanks to you all. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be able to deliver the excellence that we do within NATO to our decision makers. And I thank you in advance for the great round of applause I'm going to get. And shortly the floor will be open to any easy questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Extremely well done. Couldn't think of a better way to kick off the GEOINT Symposium without declaring the truth. It's the best discipline, so well done. Well done. Thank you for breaking the ice, and everyone can now relax. No, actually just the opposite. We can't relax, right? We must do just the opposite. So, geez, many things to talk about. Thank you for that wide view and in-depth examples of where NATO is, where NATO's going, et cetera. But I'd like to start with Ukraine. I understand NATO is setting up actually a lessons learned center, but obviously these are ongoing lessons because we're still in the fight, of course. Can you speak to your view of perhaps GEOINT lessons learned in and around the Russian invasion, and maybe what you've seen that's worked well, areas you think that we could improve to better support our Ukrainian partners through the application of GEOINT in that crisis?
Yeah, so this is a great question. We've been thinking deeply about the lessons that we can learn from the largest conflict in Europe since World War II. I think if I was if I was General Cavoli, sat here today, be asked what's the number one lesson for what we can take from the war in Ukraine, it's you must have a high-quality intelligence architecture. The number one lesson. There are others, including you need to ensure you've got sufficient stocks of material to fight a war, and then sufficient people and training to enable that as well. I think those are probably the top three. For GEOINT specifically, I think I would go to situational awareness and targeting. Mm-hmm. I think the key role that this discipline plays in ensuring that decision makers are able now to make decisions on sensitive shooter in minutes rather than hours, or potentially even longer, that has been honed by meticulous and necessary practice by the Ukrainians over the last three tragic years. So I think the ability to get, whether ideally it's data, but it could be products or services, into a system that enable you to better understand what your adversary is doing, and ideally what they are about to do, that's the key, and then also ensure that you're able to connect someone that can reach out and have an effect on them, depending on what stage of either deterrence or potentially even defense you're at. But I think situational awareness is obviously key, and then linking that to targeting.
Indeed, indeed. Going back to the NATO, I'll call it superstructure. And by the way, I'm going to ask about bureaucracy and decision making. And by the way, I don't consider bureaucracy to be a four-letter word. I think it's a necessary structure by which we steward tax-paying and common funding, et cetera. So there's a reason why we have bureaucracies. But you spoke about kind of an evolution of the NATO way of thinking and the way of applying. How can you share where NATO is on the what's done in common, right? And perhaps what's done around the edges. You gave some examples, and I know we'll hear more this week on APSS program. But is that a sign of a change in kind of how NATO's making these big decisions about funding, especially when looking for industrial and commercial partners?
So NATO is a large bureaucracy. I think we all know that. And bureaucracies tend to do what bureaucracies do. But the key is to know the system well enough to work out how you can ensure you get things done faster than it would be done if you didn't know the system well. And there are some brilliant people, and I've been fortunate. I've been in this particular role for 20 months, and I work alongside some amazing people in the intelligence world, across the international staff, across the international military staff in NATO, and with the delegations, who are all resolutely focused on trying to maximize what it is that NATO is able to achieve. But remember, most of what the capabilities that NATO has, in fact, almost all, come from the nations. And any of the capabilities that are funded commonly, as in a pot of money that nations put into, is only reliant on the nations agreeing to spend that money through a particular system. Now, there have been some good examples of where things have moved faster than you would expect, but actually the system just takes time. In an organization that's based on consensus, to reach consensus, it can take time, but when we achieve it, it is extraordinarily powerful. And I think when we talk about NATO as an organization, as an alliance, we mustn't forget how precious it is, how fortunate enough we are to have this organization. Because the first thing you get in a fight, and I speak as this as a Marine, the first thing you do in a fight is look for friends. In NATO, you have friends. You have 32 friends already, and some brilliant partners as well, who are all willing to support you, especially if it comes down to Article 5, where an attack on one is considered to be attack on all, which has only been called once in our history, which was in 2001 following the September 11 attacks. So, but the common funded money is a very, very small proportion of the overall total. So spending that money is important, and you need to spend it wisely and with taxpayers' money in mind on the most effective capabilities that you can fund commonly. But the vast, vast majority of the capabilities is what's provided by the nations. And as importantly, as I said in my speech, but Mark Rutte reiterated in the past week, is we need to spend more. Europe and Canada needs to spend more. There needs to be a burden shift from an over-reliance on the US to support the alliance as a whole, and that has already started. not only when they made the commitment for nations to reach 2% of their defense spending, most nations have reached that, and I suspect when we get to the next summit, there are already negotiations in train to see if that can be increased. I won't say what the figure is, still to be negotiated, but I suspect it will be significantly more than what people have committed before, and it won't just be a pledge, it will be a plan, because it has to be a plan in order for us to be able to ensure that we have, having learned the lessons from Ukraine, sufficient material, people, capabilities to be able to continue to deter an increasingly belligerent adversary in Russia.
Can I understand your answer to be the following, and then please adjust it? What I think I heard was, because the preponderance of the capabilities are with the nations, that what NATO spends more time and effort on is how to bring those together, how to create that shared, secured environment so that you can have access to those contributions. Is that a better way to put it?
Yeah, so I think, so yes, there's there's two other things I'd probably add is, firstly, some of the common funded capabilities are about providing the glue that binds together.
Okay.
So I've really focused on digital transformation. There is a very long acronym that talks about how we've got a plan to really ensure that we're able to bring data centricity into the, central to the organization by ensuring our digital backbone is modernized and then better connected internally and then with nations. And I suppose the second point is being crystal clear on what we require nations to bring to the fight.
Okay.
Allowing them flexibility, because of course technology is moving so fast that rather than saying we need X number of planes, aircraft, tanks, artillery pieces, we may say, well, you can achieve that effect in a different way. And we've seen the transformative nature of drone warfare in Ukraine, and not only in Ukraine. We must learn from that and adapt. And I think nations are starting to do that. So some of the capability targets, as they're called, which are given to nations, which they all accept, which spans over a relatively long period of time, there's built in there flexibility for nations to achieve the effect of that in slightly different ways. And I think we need to continue to innovate, because technology is changing so fast. And I spoke briefly about artificial intelligence, which is a particular area of focus for me, and the changes that are occurring now, and potentially in, when people talk when AGI comes, it could be 3 years, it could be 10 years, pick a number, it's going to be closer than we think.
Right.
And that will be truly transformative. And we have to be ready, at the data level, we have to be ready for that. And I think that's where the investment really needs to go when we talk about digital transformation in the alliance.
You mentioned the connection and association with and broader engagement in the Pacific, or discussions with the partners there, which seems more than appropriate, seems necessary. But how does it, what if one was concerned with stretching of existing resources and capabilities, and is there any concern that might stretch NATO a bit too thin?
So I don't think so, and the reason I say that is because the China is seen at the moment in the alliance as a strategic challenge. It's not seen as a threat. Okay. Specifically, and this is how nations have articulated that. But clearly to some allies it's very much a threat. So the idea of potential burden shifting that I mentioned in the earlier answer is ensuring there's a transition between, as Europe steps up and potentially other allies may focus more on the Indo-Pacific, that we're able to still realize our plans and still able to have the maximum amount of deterrence, and if necessary, defense of every single inch of Allied territory.
Please join me in thanking General Lynch for opening up our keynote and our symposium. Thank you, Paul.